Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome back. It's FPC Radio Live, and hey, March 18th, St. Patty's Day is in the books. So hopefully everyone celebrated responsibly yesterday. Not quite the St. Patty's Day of my youth, John. It's not quite the celebration that it once was. My days at UMass Amherst, Zoomass, they once called it. I don't know if they'd necessarily call it now. They were trying to. I know. 20 years ago, they were trying to really get away from that. Nickname, so to speak. Especially after some dummy jumped off the cafeteria roof during one of the Patriot celebrations. I was there, by the way. It was an interesting time. It was a great time. Imagine your first month or so, a month and a half of college during your 18th birthday. The Red Sox come back against the Yankees in the ALCS to go to the World Series. That was quite a week for me, by the way. But we used to have big St. Patty's. It was like they called it the Blarney Blowout. Okay, it was basically an excuse for every kid's friends from every college, from every corner of the world, to all basically come swarming in on Amherst, Massachusetts, to enjoy the St. Patty's Day celebrations of the weekend. And essentially that means there was kegs and eggs at the Irish establishment downtown. Anyone who's been in Amherst knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then there was a traditional, basically a blowout party at the townhouses and Pleasant Street and all that stuff, to the point, John, where I remember I was actually working one of these, and it was the worst decision I've ever made because I was driving literally through a horde of people. I'm not making this up. They were swarming my car to the point where at one point someone came by and smacked my windshield, and I got out. Some things were said. And we'll leave it at that, John. Let's say I don't want to reveal too much of what happened, but the point is there was a lot of loud, raucous people during these events, and it was certainly usually quite the weekend, and something that you don't necessarily feel great about come Monday. But no, I didn't do anything yesterday, so it was a little different.
Now, back when you were in college, obviously, would spring break be the week after St. Patrick's Day? It worked out perfectly this year because it fell on a Sunday. So celebrations started Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the parade on Sunday. This would be the perfect week to have spring break because there's got to be some recovery period, both for the school and also the individual.
Yes, but normally I feel like this weekend celebration generally would happen before that because look, when school was out of session, Western Massachusetts, Amherst, it was a farm town. That was it. I mean, this place went quiet, and it was like there was nothing. There was no college that existed there outside of maybe like a community college, So I would definitely don't feel like it was definitely during spring break because you wouldn't have gotten quite the blowout as usual. But it had to have been pretty soon thereafter. I never went on spring break, John. That wasn't my thing, because I was broke. So I didn't.
And you were playing hockey, and you were probably working. So
yeah. I guess sure. Why not? I mean, working, sitting around all day, playing Madden, drinking, and doing various other things. One or the other. Kind
of like Tom Brady 4 years earlier, right?
Yeah.
In his first year with the Patriots, he was the fourth string quarterback playing a lot of video games with his roommate.
Right, exactly. So me and Tom Brady, we're pretty much the same person.
I do.
Hey, you know what? I'm cool with that. We'll leave it at that. So, anyways, but yeah, that was weekends of past. St. Patty's Day weekends of past. Weekends of present. Yeah, I actually, you know what? I kind of sat around and played video games all day yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. Actually, no, not all day. I was productive. I had to do some things around the house, but it was kind of lazy. Certainly, there wasn't copious amounts of drinking, and I don't think I wore a. Actually, you know what? I did accidentally wear green yesterday. I'm not going to lie. I accidentally wore green. It wasn't intentional, but I was wearing my Festivus shirt. So, yeah, it was green. It says Festivus for the rest of us in red. So it was more Christmassy than anything, but technically there was green.
as an Italian American, was supposed to wear orange on St. Patrick's Day, but I didn't do that.
Well, and it's funny. Joel says me and Tom throwing controllers across the room, and oddly enough, I've had a few moments of very heavy frustration. Mostly, so we used to. I think before it was popular, John, obviously, but Madden, we would create a franchise, essentially, a custom franchise. Me and a buddy would take control of one team, and we would basically play as each other's opponents throughout the season. It was an easy way of like, hey, you know what? We're going to be playing casually anyway. Let's up the stakes here. Let's make it a little bit competitive. So we build our teams, compete for Super Bowls, all that stuff. No game has ever brought out as much anger as Madden has for me. And I have admittedly broken a few controllers in my time, including throwing a few into bedroom doors, which again, I don't like admitting this, John. I feel like I'm a very, for the most part, very level-headed, very cool, calm, and collected. I can pretty much, like I said, that the whole situation with someone walking by and smacking the hand against my car, cracking my windshield, by the way. I didn't mention that part. I did not physically assault the guy. I thought twice about it, and I got myself back, composed and everything like that. If
Serenity now.
Serenity now. Yes, exactly. Serenity now. However, had it been a game of Madden and not my car windshield getting cracked, I would have probably put his head through a windshield. That's how frustrating Madden is, and what it does to me. So, it was great. Another good point was, my college day Madden was Madden 2004. Okay, so a little while ago, but anyone who knows Madden 04 knows Michael Vick was essentially a cheat. Like, John, you could take the ball at your opponent's 30-yard line, just outside the red zone, okay? Take Michael Vick, literally run all the way back to the back, your own end zone, okay? Get the entire group of defenders running at you. It looks like a peewee or squirt hockey game, where everyone just like goes to the puck. No one really has any structure or anything like that. And then you just run the 100 yards back and score a touchdown. So yeah, there were certain things you had to you had to kind of limit and maybe, say, hey, technically it's legal, but and there was also something, I can't remember in which version of the game, but my I had one friend I used to play with. We used to I used to call him a glitch. Well, figure out what word rhymes with glitch, and you can put two and two together. But that's what I would call him, because he was the type of person who would, there was a small little glitch where you could like run up the sidelines, but like, oh no, it was on like kick returns or whatever. You could like take your opponent out of the field of play, and in football it's illegal, but they just couldn't rectify it in the Madden game. So that would irritate me, and then he would do other things that like he knew were glitchy. He wasn't like, I was good because I knew football, not because I was necessarily a good video game player. I mean, trust me, get me on a Call of Duty screen and you'll be laughing at my lack of hand-eye coordination when it comes to those games like that. But football was fine, but it got frustrating. And Madden, especially when you added the extra level of stakes, because like obviously, it's not like we would have like money on it necessarily. I mean, I'm sure we threw down some money or made some bets here and there, but it was about winning. It was about winning those Super Bowls. And one of the most maddening things, actually, it didn't actually happen to me. Fortunately, I was the cause of it. But I was playing one friend of mine, and we were in the 4th season, John, of this franchise, by the way. It was pretty impressive. I mean, these games add up quickly because you're playing a lot when you're in college. So now we're just playing for stakes. But I had won 3 Super Bowls in a row with the Raiders, by the way, and Kyle Bowler, of all quarterbacks. For some reason, I was great with left-handed quarterbacks. I don't know what it was. And Kyle Bowler was...
That's a great job of coaching at Kyle Bowler.
Oh, yeah, well, of course. I mean, clearly. I mean, it was me, handling everything. Well, we were in the Super Bowl. It just so happened that my buddy's team, because we would play opposite. Sometimes we do same division. Sometimes we do opposite conference, depending on what we wanted. In this particular case, I was the AFC. He was an NFC team. I don't remember which one necessarily, but so we actually ended up meeting in the Super Bowl, which is great because this is the first time. But and throughout the regular seasons, John, this was incredible. Throughout the regular seasons, we did 5 of these, okay, with these 2 teams. We had the exact identical regular season record against each other. I was perfect in the playoffs, though. So that's where the big difference comes. So in this particular game, I was going for my 4th Super Bowl in a row. I know. I got some banners in the other room. I'll show you sometime. We actually did make we bought a bag of dollar trophies, like little plastic things or whatever. So we used to hand those out. So I had a bunch of them up on my in my room somewhere. So my buddy has the ball. There's literally 40 seconds left, 45 seconds. All he has to do, one more snap, let the ball run out or let the clock run out. He wins the Super Bowl, John. Wins the Super Bowl. He's celebrating. I'm like, good job. You finally did it. So what does he do? He runs the ball. Very simple. Just run the ball. Run the clock out. So he runs off right, and I come across the field, and I hit stick the living hell out of him. Okay? I mean, this was just, boom. I mean, just, you could almost feel it. Actually, you could. The controller was vibrating. And he fumbled, John. He fumbled. And he's on my 30-yard line right here. So there's a big stretch of field left. I pick up the fumble. At this point, the clock is winding down because again, it was 45 seconds and the clock was winding. So we had to snap the ball, but the clock was still running. By the time I picked it up, I'm running back with clock. There's no time left. I'm either going to get tackled or I'm going to win the game. There's no in between. So of course, John, I return the ball 70 yards for a touchdown, walk off. I've never seen this kid. I mean, far quieter, much more reserved. I had to get out of the room because I thought he was going to kill me. I legitimately thought, and I wouldn't blame him. Honestly, if it happened, I'd be like, I get it. I understand. Madden, it's a frustrating game. It can make the best of friends hate each other, but
why didn't you just take a knee? Was that an option in the game?
Because sometimes you get a little arrogant. And taking knees are boring. I mean, and plus in Madden, I mean, you got to figure with a video game, it's it's just, come on, just run the clock out. You don't have to go through the theatrics of normal football. You know what I mean? So he's thinking, okay, I'm just going to run off, right? Get tackled, game over. Worst case scenario, there's no way he's going to return a fumble. I mean, that was more of the concern. You're not going to throw in that situation because far more likely you can throw a pick and that's frustrating. But you got to kind of figure, John, that you can at least make one run and not get tackled and fumble the ball. And unfortunately he did. I ended up going on and winning the next Super Bowl too. And I was a 5-time straight champion. And then as it happens in most cases, because the cap isn't crap, and this is going to bring us right back to where we wanted to start to begin with, it would get to a point where both of our teams were so deep into dead money that it was impossible to field the team, and you literally just could not continue the franchise. That's because you had so much cap hit in future years because you would just not knowing anything, you would just cut players and you would accrue all those penalties and stuff down the line. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Worth it though. You won 5.
I did.
In a row. Nothing wrong with that. You know who would be really good at Madden today would be Justin Fields, right? He's kind of like a Michael Vick guy, not as good a thrower.
But
certainly could run.
I'll put it this way though: the difference between Michael Vick and the field though was I could probably say one of the if you're gonna ask me who the most dominating players in any sports video games have been, Michael Vick. You got Alexander Mogilny from NHL '94. Mm-hmm. Unstoppable. I mean, all you got to do is do the little wraparound, and he's putting that puck in every time. I'd say
imagine Steph Curry in basketball, probably. Maybe Kyrie Irving.
Maybe, but I honestly, I those are newer games, and I'm not as hip to some of those newer games, to put it bluntly. I'll say this though: pick up a game of NBA 2K3, and you are not beating Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki. I can tell you that much. They were made almost unstoppable, but like even Michael Vick was just on such a different level. I mean, to the point where it was like, I even think like the Madden creators were like, okay, I think we went a little overboard, because like, again, like I said before, you could run all the way to the end of your own end zone and then run the full 100 yards back with him and score a touchdown most of the time. It was pretty pretty incredible. Pretty incredible.
He looked like the Pop Warner quarterback who was just better than everybody.
Oh yeah,
There's always that one kid that's just bigger, stronger, faster, like well more advanced, and like you said, everybody chases him. He just brings them all back. He traps them back to the end zone, and then basically does a 100-yard dash, and they're not catching him. So yeah, I'm sure that was with Michael Vick at that point, because the video games started to really get big then. I mean, I know they were there when I'm so old. I think the only thing we had was Pong at that point. But and I was never a video game player. I just wasn't. So we did different things, like, you know, we played stickball outside, street hockey outside, and you know, most of that stuff was whatever. There was a football game I had when I was growing up. It was Mattel football game, where you had these little discs with offensive plays. So the offensive, if you were on offense, you slid that little disc into this player, and on the other side of the disc were like 6 different defenses. So if I was the offense, I'd pick, you know, screen pass to the right, put it in the player, hand it to you, and then you'd set your defense. You didn't know what play I had, and then you'd press the thing down, and the announcer would come on and say what happened. That was like really high tech.
Right.
Going back 45 years ago, that was like a big deal.
Well, we started, you know, those early 2000s. That's when you started to get some of the next generation type consoles. Like you had the N64, and then obviously the PlayStation were game changers. But even then, the graphics were still, you know, very cube based. I mean, you know, I can go play Final Fantasy VII like I've done many times, even to this day, back on the original PlayStation. And you know, all the characters are all almost block based. You know what I mean? That's just that's just the technology. But you know, with the Xbox and obviously the you know, the later versions of the PlayStation, you got better graphics and things that were a little bit more realistic. Whereas, like, you know, I was playing recently WrestleMania 2000 for the N64, and then also WWE 2K4 that just came out like last week. And let's just say, John, there is a very big difference between the two. Both great games.
Yeah, how much they've grown.
Yeah.
They've all grown, exactly. Yeah, no, it's something that just gets better with every incarnation because of technology. And I know a lot of people kind of push back and say the stuff was better back then, but I think people think that way because they were also a freshman in college doing it, right? And it was,
you know, there is, and Braden brought this up too. It's like, I mean, there is a point though where like some of these games are kind of, they're just recycled, because how much can you actually do with different sports games, especially when you're on the 30th iteration of it, you know? And when it comes to Madden, I think it's all close to 30. It's probably like 28 versions of the game. So like, you know, how often, and without real competition too, John. But that's the thing too. It's like these games don't necessarily have real competition from other franchises, which, well, we know what that means. That means they get complacent and they can kind of recycle some of the same stuff, update the rosters, and that's essentially it. Whereas, you know, those earlier games, there were some elements to them too that were just better. Now it's, like I said, it's more, you know, again, how much of the game is actually just them taking the previous year's version and tweaking a few things. You know what I mean? Both physically and theoretically. I mean, obviously, maybe they just take the same software and you know, make a few tweaks and that's it. So, but either way, I don't know how we got on that. Oh yeah, I was talking about my St. Patty's Day. So, but you did bring up Justin Fields, though, who is no longer a member of the Chicago Bears. He is a Pittsburgh Steeler, which, you know, it's funny how this all played out for Pittsburgh over the last week and a half or so, where, you know, they acquire Russell Wilson or sign Russell Wilson. When you think, okay, well, Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, there's going to be a quote unquote quarterback competition. You assume Russ is probably going to win that one, but, you know, hey, you never know. Russ isn't any sure thing at the moment. Kenny Pickett apparently did not want to go through that competition or deal with that. So he gets traded. He gets traded to Seattle. So guess what? Pittsburgh needs a new backup quarterback. Why not Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick? And what did we say last week, John? I'd be shocked if they got anything more than a 4th-rounder, and that's about I think it can escalate up to a 4th-round pick based on his play time, which, again, you assume that at least going into the season, Russell Wilson will be the starter. I actually think they might have even said that already. But that's not to say that Justin Fields couldn't push him because, well, there's enough doubt in Russell Wilson's play and enough, I guess, there's doubt in Justin Fields' play, but more or less doubt's not the right uncertainty. Let's put it that way, uncertainty, because uncertainty can be good or bad. Uncertainty meaning, well, he could be bad or he could. Maybe it clicks for him finally. Maybe he's in this situation and it's finally going to click for him. So at least with Justin Fields, I think there's a possibility that he can improve himself. I think Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson. You're not going to get much better, I think, than what you got last year. And if you're going to ask me if I'm a betting man, it's probably more likely that it's going to get worse. But look, it's a I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how to make of it because when we talk about some of the worst quarterback situations last year, you could probably sit there, or in the last couple of years, because again, Russell Wilson wasn't terrible yet last year, but you're not going to get far down the list when you're talking about quarterbacks that are struggled. So some of the names on that list: Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones. Now all of a sudden, Pittsburgh has replaced their Kenny Pickett with 2 other quarterbacks that are struggling. But like I said before, at least with Justin Fields, there at least is some potential there. There's at least some ceiling that maybe he hasn't reached yet. I think Russell Wilson has reached his, and in fact is on the way down. Justin Fields at least has that potential. And look, I mean, athleticism helps. It's certainly a crutch, but it can't be a crutch forever. And he's got to learn how to play the quarterback position better. So, at the end of the day, do I like this move for the Steelers? I'm like, yeah, because they got it's like the Patriots thing. It's like any quarterback other than Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. Yeah, you improved at the position, most likely. And that's a positive. And I kind of feel that that's the same thing I'm thinking about with the Steelers, because, at the end of the day, are you going to get the best out of Russell Wilson with Justin Fields breathing down your neck? And at the same time, if given the opportunity, is Justin Fields going to be able to seize that opportunity? And, part of me feels like the answer to both of those questions is no.
Yeah, I think when you look at I think they've improved their quarterback room for really not spending all that much.
Right.
The veterans minimum for Russell Wilson and the 6th-round pick that could move up to a 4th-round pick if Fields plays 51% of the snaps. So I think that's a good move by the Steelers, and then they can reevaluate the position at the end of next year. They have a good defense. They've got some weapons on offense. They're bringing in a new offensive coordinator, so they can sell it as that. They're in the toughest division of football. That's the problem. They have the weakest quarterback room in that division, I think, by far. I mean, obviously, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are in another stratosphere, and I would still take Deshaun Watson over Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. So, they have to make up some ground there. But I think they did the best they could without spending all that much in terms of draft capital or money.
Yeah, and like I said, that's where you have to kind of give the Steelers their props. But at the same time, is it just a Band-Aid? And probably because I mean they're going to have to make a decision on both these quarterbacks, and that's the positive too. Is like if push comes to shove, they can get out of this after this year. I mean, Russell Wilson's only on a 1-year deal, and I believe you can decline Justin Fields' 5th-year option after this year. So they have options to get out of it. But again, I mean, this isn't a team that's trying to replace like I mean, they are in Ben Roethlisberger, but this is a team that hasn't necessarily been competitive. Like, I always kind of chuckle at it's so impressive that, Mike Tomlin always has these winning seasons. I'm like, okay, I don't care. Like, I know technically 10-7 is a winning season, but I'm not getting excited over a winning season that doesn't end in some sort of championship game appearance. Is that fair? I mean, I'm not touting winning.
That organization has very high standards, obviously. So, but I mean,
do they?
It's better to be 10-7.
Do they? I mean, lately, do they? Because I mean, they seem to be impressed over just making the playoffs. When I seem to remember the Steelers being a championship type team. Not a we made.
It's only been when they've had quarterbacks, though, whether it's Bradshaw or Roethlisberger. The rest of the time, they've always been competitive, but,
because they have Mike Tomlin, he's a great coach because they're competitive. Like, look, this isn't me, like, just out of the blue jumping. I think I've been not critical of Mike Tomlin, but I'm not as high on him as some people are. Like, some people get, like, you hear people, basically giving lectures on how great Mike Tomlin is because of this. He's never had a losing record. Okay. What has he won outside of that one Super Bowl 14 years ago?
What most coaches won. I mean, that's
that's fair, but that's
and Andy Reid. Not many of them have won more than one. So
yeah, and we see how Belichick gets treated. Well, that's what I'm saying, though. But we've seen how Belichick got, certainly in the last 5 or 6 years. The point is, I feel like Mike Tomlin is overprotected. Like, I feel like he should get more slack for underperforming. I mean, let's be honest. You say the Steelers have high standards. Well, they've been just wavering in mediocrity for years now. And this was even with Ben Roethlisberger during his last few years. And I understand that, obviously he wasn't the same guy. But, like, we're talking about, I mean, John, when did he retire? Was it 2017?
He retired. Well, he went through the COVID year.
Oh, right, yeah.
But no, actually 2021, and then they snuck in the playoffs.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm completely. You're right.
It's only been 2 years, but it's Tomlin. Look, people like Tomlin because of the way he handles himself with the press, and people are going to push back against Belichick because of the way he handles himself.
And that means what to the football to football?
Well, that's almost human nature, though.
No, I'm not asking.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, I'm not asking.
I'm telling you what it is, not what should be. So I think, look, and again, mediocrity can be defined in many ways. They generally do contend, and look, they've never been 4-13 with Mike Tomlin. They've never come close to that. I mean, that was a disaster last year with the Patriots, and Belichick paid for his job with it, and now we'll see how they rebuild. So I think that there's that. But really, outside of Belichick and now Andy Reid, name the coaches that won more than one Super Bowl that are still around. There aren't any. There's a bunch of guys that won one, and they all were tied in with.
Well, I mean, part of it, but again, part of it is because they're better coaches. I mean, I'm looking at Steelers 10-7, 9-8, 9-7, 12-4, 2020 with Ben Roethlisberger, 8-8, 9-6, 13-3. That was their last real great season. You had Roethlisberger, Bell, Antonio Brown. That was like peak. 11-5, 10-6, 11-5. That was their best stretch, in terms of in the last 10 years.
And they lose to them in an AFC Championship game, and they could beat the Patriots. The Patriots were better.
8-8, a couple more 12-4s, 9-7, and there you go. So it's like you have some nice winning seasons in there, no doubt. I'm not knocking that, but half of it you win double-digit games. The other half you're a mediocre, middle of the pack team that finishes third or fourth in the division. And to me, it's like, and you the reverence for Mike Tomlin around, and like you said, I mean, the reason for it partly is how he treats the media. And like I said, I think that means nothing when it comes to actual football coaching ability. But to me, I'm just like, man, can we ease up a little bit in talking about how great Mike Tomlin is? Because as far as I know, I feel like he's underachieved.
Yeah, you would expect better results for sure, especially when you have a really good defense most of those years, and you can look at that. Sometimes his game management leaves a little bit to be desired, but again, I just don't think there's that many high-level coaches. So maybe he's the fourth or fifth best coach in the league, and that's not saying much. It's like years the Oscars where the 5 nominees for best actors, there's 2 great performances and 3 good ones, but they still have to fill out the list. So all I think is they've done a decent job trying to figure out what they want to do with quarterback for this year. Obviously, the best way to do it is to draft one, develop one. They thought they could do that with Kenny Pickett, and obviously that wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, based on that noise in the background, I think it's time for us to go. Actually, it's time based on the fact that it's 9:59, and that's usually when we lock up. So, all right, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. I'm actually not going to be here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so we'll try to get as much in tomorrow as we possibly can. So, thank you everyone, and we'll talk to you then.